with the illusion. All right, now we're getting somewhere. With the illusion that a taste of a forbidden fruit would make her an equal with God. It worked. Eve bit, but it worked. And that's what counts about propaganda. Not whether it's true, but whether it moves someone to what? Okay. Now, see, this is the whole scheme of different things. Most people do things or think of things by suggestion, or it has been implanted into our memory bank, and we act on it. And that's where it talks about the bottom line is, can I get someone to act on something? That's what propaganda is all about. Now notice it says he seduced Eve with the what? Illusion. And most of us are living in an illusion. The stuff that's going on is, a lot of it is an illusion. That's all it is. It isn't real. But it is made in your mind to make it think it is real. But it isn't. I don't know how many people have heard of the Matrix. Wait. Can I see some hands? I mean, y'all got to be kidding me. All right. That's about to say nobody heard of the Matrix. Huh? All right. In the Matrix, everybody was asleep, and they were dreaming that they were doing all this stuff. And that's all it was. They were just dreaming. Now, do you remember the Bible talks about the 10 virgins? Now, what about the 10 virgins happened? It says that the 10 virgins, what happened? There's 5 wise and there's 5 foolish. And as the night went on, what happened? All right, the 5 wise had oil, and the 5 foolish did not take extra oil for their lamps. And then as the night got weary, then what happened? Okay, they ran out, okay? But what happened while they're running out? They went to sleep. Right? Right, the Matrix. Now, how many went to sleep? The wise or the foolish? Or both? Okay, let's turn to Matthew 25 for a minute. I don't think y'all really knew. That's Matthew chapter 25. I heard some say just the foolish went to sleep. Okay, so everybody goes to sleep. The question is, what happens when you wake up? So what's the Matrix? Everybody's sleeping in the Matrix. All right, what are we saying? See, the Bible's telling us some stuff and we sometimes missing the point. Okay, verse number, then shall the kingdom of heaven be likened unto 10 virgins, which took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom. And 5 of them were wise, and 5 were foolish. They that were foolish took their lamps, and took no oil with them. But the wise took oil in their vessels with their lamps. So they had lamps, and the lamps were lit, and they had some oil in the lamp, but it says they had an extra vessel of what? Of oil to refill once it got what? Started going low, it started going out. Okay. While the bridegroom tarried, how many? They all slumbered and slept. So, if we realize it or not, we sleeping. Now, the next question is, the Bible does tell us, arise thou that sleepest. So, he's telling us that we are asleep. So, first we got to recognize that we sleep. See, if we never recognize we're going to sleep, we ain't going to never what? Wake up. Because we dream in that what? That we're awake. And you know in a dream, when you're in a dream, that dream is real. You ain't no way. You believe you dream and you think it's real. And to you it is real. Now, when you're asleep, do you know anything that's going on around you consciously? No. You're totally unconscious to everything that is going on around you, which is real. And the illusion of the dream has you captivated to the point that you have no clue of what is real. But you believe you know that's real. So that's the power we're dealing with, okay? And that's why I said we got to cover this first so that we can see that we've been sleeping. So when we go tomorrow through the rest of the stuff, you might be saying, wow, I didn't know I was sleeping that bad. But that's okay. That's okay. The catch is we got to recognize that we're what? Sleep. See, if we miss that point, you'll be in denial the whole time. Because it can't be that bad. No, brother, it's impossible. This scheme is too deep. But that's the way it runs. So what we find out is that as we are sleeping, we're unconscious to the surroundings of what's really going on. We're in an illusion, and we're dreaming. Now, how conscious are we? Are we conscious? No, we're unconscious. Our subconscious is what's running around. So we are missing everything. So somebody can be in your house, in front of you, stealing everything you got. And you'll be thinking it's all right because you have no clue of what's really happening. Because the dream that you're in, hey man, it's wonderful. I don't even want to come out of it. And especially if somebody's robbing me, I really don't want to come out of it. And so that's what I mean. You're in this unconscious state of an illusion, thinking what is real is not, because you're like in the Matrix, just dreaming. And then finally, if you ever wake up, because some people never wake up, if you ever wake up, then you're shocked into reality of seeing that everything that you had is gone. That's what they mean, they stole it. They stole it. But they stole it on so many levels of our consciousness, we don't even know that anything has been stolen. And that's where we find ourselves. That's where we are today. The Bible says all the world wandered after the beast. You might be saying, everybody but me. And then the Bible's wrong. I guess you're right. But I don't think so. All the world wandered after the beast. Now, everybody doesn't have to continue to wander after the beast, but you got to first realize that you were wandering after him. And then you say, hey, I'm getting out from under this guy because he ain't got nothing good for me. And so this is when you come to what we call consciousness. So we have to realize that we're in a state of unconsciousness and that we have to become conscious. So that as we talked about here, the propaganda has been around ever since the serpent seduced Eve with the illusion. And that's what mostly is going on. Now, I don't know if y'all knew about this, but they said that they did some experiments at in movie theaters. This was way back. And that they would, there's 60 slides, supposed to be 60 slides per second. That's supposed to go through so your eyes can see it, and that's how things move in film. Okay? So what they were trying to do was they said that if we just drop popcorn or soda, just one of those little slots, just one, not a whole 60 of them, just one here, there, what would be the response of the people at the end? So that's subliminally implanting thoughts into your mind. And they did it, and they said, man, the Pepsi sales went up, the popcorn sales, everything went up. Whatever we told these people to do, they did it. And that's what's called subliminal subduction. And so this is practiced all the time. Now, it's illegal, but it's only illegal if you get caught. That's how it all works. It's only illegal when you get caught. And if it's a white-collar crime, you don't have to pay too much fine. As somebody say, you go to jail for stealing because you need to eat. The other guy can steal everybody's pension, retirement, and never spend a day in prison. White-collar crime. Okay, so we got to remember of what is going on. We have to realize what is really going on. And unless we realize that we're asleep, and I'm glad the Matrix came out because we're really asleep. Okay, and now the question is, tonight, when you go home, you might not want to come back, but tonight we're going to give you the blue and the red pill. You got to choose which one you want. And you can tell your friends, hey, I think it was good, you need to come back, or hey, man, you don't want to hear that brother, man. He's making all your good stuff disappear. You know, he's trying to wake you up. But that's what we're here for. We're here to wake you up, to wake us all up, to understand what is actually going on. Now, everyone is familiar with Bill Moyers. And he's actually telling us that the government, our government, and other governments around the whole world use propaganda all the time. Okay? And it's used in our curriculum. And so we're going to talk about curriculum when we talk about true education versus miseducation. Because the curriculum that you use will determine, are you being miseducated, or are you really learning, or are you really being educated? Now, education gets you to think. Okay? Miseducation gets you to regurgitate. Okay? Repeat after me. Simon says, or whatever. See, then you get an A. Perfect. That's the one we want. The other one says, Simon says, well, why? I don't want to stand on my foot. Well, hey, Simon says, man, just obey and listen. Don't be just, thinking. And see, education is supposed to get you to think. And then make a decision, not just follow what somebody implanted into your brain or got you to think. And so that's what the difference is. One gets you to regurgitate, repeat after me, and you do good. Because all you got to do is memorize what we tell you to do. And that's the way education is. You memorize all these facts. And some of them ain't facts. Okay? But they're conclusions that they've concluded. And so you have to decide on what is truth. Okay. All right. Back to the video. That's right. Now, do you know that you don't even, your attitudes that you have been given to you? That's right. Been suggested to you? And most of us, we buy it. Yes. Now, this ain't me talking. This is Bill Moyers. So y'all be saying this brother's making all this stuff up. No. This is truth. This is what actually happens. They want to create an attitude. See, once you create an attitude, then you can get people to what? Act. But you have to create a what? An attitude. That's right. So if you can create an attitude, then they can act. And then you can mold their what? Mold their behavior. So that means people want to control what? Other people. And that's dangerous. Especially when you don't even know that you are being controlled. See, slavery wasn't that bad compared to this slavery. Because we knew that we was in chains. And when you can get, you can scheme to get away. Where the other one is, you think you're what? You're free. And you chained the whole time. Now that's dangerous. And that's where we find ourselves today. Most people have no clue. They just go about like robots, doing their daily tasks, having none whatsoever. And so that's because the propagandist is creating attitudes. It's just like during slavery. Just to give you a typical example. It was acceptable that blacks could be enslaved. That was an attitude. I mean, they want to know why you black and white, you ain't in slavery. That's an attitude that was created in a person to get them to think that way. And so then what did it do? It said, okay, then it's justified for us to what? Enslave you. Because you mold our behavior. And then it was okay for the slave to accept that what? That you're 1/8 of a person, and now you can what? Obey master. And he has your best interests at heart. And anyway, if you didn't, obey master, what would you do? And then, I think on some movie, they said, the master said, okay, you're free, go. The slave says, wait a minute, master, what am I supposed to do? Hey, you're free. You no longer have to obey me. Master, come on now. I don't know what else to do. I say, my goodness, man, anything would be better than David here. But it molds what? Their behavior. Such that we were so tamed that we did not want to leave master. And so this is what we're talking about. This was just an example of something that's factual that has happened. Now, the next question is, how are they molding our behavior since slavery has been, quote unquote, removed? And so that's where miseducation and propaganda comes in. Now, this is a video series, a tape that's called The Propaganda Battle. Okay? This is a battle over, as the Bible talks about. If we look in the Bible, the battle is always over what? Our minds. Of what's in our minds, what's put in our minds, and how do we what? Respond to it. And so that's why the Bible talks about by the transforming of our what? Our minds. So if our minds are never transformed, then we can never be what? You'll never, be transformed. So if your mind doesn't move in that direction, your body will never what? Follow. And so that's where the key falls. They said that if we can control, now I don't know how many read the book, The Miseducation of the Negro by Carter G. Woodson. He tells you the whole plan. And right after the Civil War, they went right into effect. Okay, we got to figure out how to enslave them in the mind. And it works. And that's where we find ourselves today. Now, some of the tapes that we'll see is going to explain that. Now, okay, so we got that part.
Wondrous legends, simple parables, and proverbs, all to inspire awe and obedience from the common folk.
Freeze it.
We owe the actual word to the church, to those cardinal.
Okay, their goal is to inspire what? And what? From who? And that's interesting. Now, the propagation of the faith, what does that mean? You're propagating somebody's faith. The question is, whose faith is it? It's somebody's. So notice it's supposed to create what? Awe. And so they use the Bible to create what? Awe. Yes, amen. And then they use what? Obedience. And so that's how it has been used. Now, notice this. It says that the church, we owe the actual word to the church, to those cardinals in 1622, organized to carry the missionary work in the name of the Congregation for the Propagation of the... What year? 1622. Now that is very interesting because they admitted to what? Propaganda. The church was propagandists. Now, see, most people who say, wait a minute, brother. But they're propagating what? The faith. So they say it's good. And that's what the Crusades was all about. And people will die over it. Okay, so, and now today, I remember Bush said that what? He's creating what? The Second Crusades when he first came in office. They told him to backtrack that, but he already said it. And that's where we're in. We're in the Second Crusades. That's exactly where we are. So the point is, now, okay, in 1622, let's try to think. Now we're getting a little too into my second book and so forth, but that's all right. Let's think about history now. We want to deal with some little bit of history. Okay. Christopher came to America in what year? 1492. Now, there was some other event that happened in Europe in 1492, which is out of the textbooks. That was the year. Now, prior to that, in Europe, there was this struggle going on for many years of the Moors ruling parts of Europe. Okay? Spain and Portugal, those are the two places where they ruled. And so what happened was, in 1492, they were battling over the Moors and the Africans, and that was the last fight for the last overthrow of the African armies to be kicked out of Europe. Now, see, none of that history is even told. Anyways, my second book goes into all that detail. Oh yeah, we get it. We start going a little deeper than what reaches the surface. And so, if that happened in 1492, okay, then when we move into then that's the beginning, right before the beginning of what? The 1500s. So guess what was going on in the 1500s? In the 1500s, in your book, y'all have my book, whoever got my book, in your book, I believe it's in the introduction. Can I borrow somebody's book for a second? Or somebody give me one of my books. And can you give me one of my books from over there? That'll work. There's a quote I put in here that was, oh man, I can figure out where I put it. Thank you. All right, let me see here. I'll find that one quote. Oh my goodness. Oh no. John, no. Oh, man. That will be my preface anyway, my introduction. Okay. This is back to the cover page. The first, in my preface, in the preface is the first quote. Oh yeah. No, this is in my first book. Okay, I put it in it. On page 9 at the bottom, first quote, the rise of Western culture during the 16th century caused most books, relics, icon, and other religious artifacts in support of Africans' contribution to the formation of Judaism and Christianity to be either destroyed or placed in dungeons throughout Europe and parts of Africa, of Asia. Now, when did this happen? 16th century. What dates are we talking? 1500s. Okay, what happened right before the 1500s? Europe kicked out the last Moors out of Africa. Now, some believe, the Crusades was a religious war. It wasn't. It was a racist war. It wasn't. They say it was Muslims against Christians. No, it wasn't Muslim against Christians because the Moors, you have Moors who were black Christians. Moors just meant you were black. That's all that meant. But, it's just like today. We think we fighting what? War over what? Oil. No, we don't think we fighting over oil. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in there. That's really what we're doing, but that's not it. But he told us point blank. He said it's a religious war. I mean, they kept telling him to keep changing, but he did tell us his heart. So that's what I go by, not the propaganda. Then they say, hey, retract that. Make it look bad. But that's the truth. So immediately after the last conquest of the last African get thrown out of Europe, what happens immediately after that for the next 100 years? They start rewriting history. They started taking all the icons, all the statues, anything that documented that Europeans were conquered by Africans, and rewriting it. And making sure that anything that had to do with Africans having anything to do with Christianity because that's in Europe now, run by Rome. So now it's a European religion. And now anything that has to do with also what? Judaism. Okay? And so we have the European Jews. So they have to wipe out any African contributions to both. And that means you got to what? Rewrite history. So we see that for 100 years, they're rewriting history. And then 100 years, and then 22 years later, guess what they do? What they do? They announce that we've been using propaganda, folks, for the last 100 years. And we're going to still continue, and it's under the name of the church. I mean, this is them saying it. This ain't me making this stuff up. Now, what Bible was printed in 1610? No, the authorized. No, not just King James, the authorized King James. Because there were many Bibles out there. There were African books, there was Muslim, there was a lot of books out there. They said, whoa. Well, we got to authorize, we got to say what you guys can read. Because if y'all read it all, y'all might, you might start thinking. So, hey, this is what you can read, this and this only. And that's the authorized version. Okay? So now this is what? 12 years before what? They announced that they're propagating propaganda. I said, oh my God. I'm saying, that's why I said history and all this stuff has to fit together. I mean, it does fit together. The question is, if you've been molded and shaped to believe an illusion, then there's no way you're going to think and see this. And it's right there. Now, let's get back to my book for a second. Just for a quick second there. Next paragraph. During the 1500s, 16th century, immediately after the last war, black African was defeated in Europe. In 1492, at the beginning of the 1500s, the authorized sanctioned scholar wasted no time in removing all traces of the black African presence in the formation of Judaism and Christianity. After 100 years of destroying, removing, and renaming all evidence of the black African formation of Judaism and Christianity, then this laid the foundation for what would happen a century later in the 17th century, the 1600s. One, the authorized King James Version of the Bible in 1611. And two, the official use of propaganda in 1622. So you see there? Just over a little bit of history, they rewrote everything. And they said that, hey, we're going to propagate. Now, people, don't take it wrong. We're propagating the faith. So make sure that you only propagate the authorized version of how things were and should be. And that's what they did. All the way to today. I mean, most of us, and that's why they authorize our what? Schools. That's why they authorize you to teach. That's why they give you authorization so that you can propagate what? The faith. You didn't know the school systems were propagating the faith, did you? Every form of media is the propagation of the faith. Did you know that? All forms of media is brainwashing. As they put it, creating what? I hope y'all writing these words down. Creating attitudes, molding behavior. Where's that other one? Aha. Move someone. See, those are the key things. If they're doing that to you, you can know that you are being what? Miseducated. Brainwashed, whatever phrase you want to use. Subliminal subduction, whatever you want to use. And that's the key. So we want to make sure that we understand what's actually going on. Okay? So we see that so far. Everybody? Okay? All right, you go flip the tape again.
Organized to carry on missionary work in the name of the Congregation for the Propagation of the Faith. But it's our century, the 20th, that created the superstate and put into the hands of its propagandists a power beyond the dreams of the ancient sorcerers. This power, the power of film. Until this century, people had to be won over by individual persuasion or in crowds. Mass communications changed that, film in particular. Now the propagandists could reach the whole crowd at once and yet touch each person in that crowd individually. We saw this powerfully and frighteningly demonstrated during the Second World War, the first war in which both sides used motion pictures as weapons. Our broadcast is about that war of ideas, whose combatants fought not with our...
Okay, you can get that other tape ready. I'm finished with that tape. Now, we see here that they had made mention of what happened. They created the what? So that the power of the propagandists is beyond the ancient dreams of the sorcerer. Did y'all know that they practice sorcery on us? Y'all looking for some black magic somewhere. And where's that happening? I'm not even going to say where it's happening. Y'all should know. Somebody might, okay, it should be obvious to you. Okay, and that's what is going on, and that's dangerous. In the book of Revelation, let's turn there for a second, Revelation 18. Is the Bible say that sorcery will be practiced in the last days? Okay. In verse number 23 of the book of Revelation, verse 18. And the light of the candle shall shine no more at all in thee, and the voice of the bridegroom and of the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee. For thy merchants were the great men of the earth. For by thy what? Sorceries were all nations deceived. So it's not just individuals being deceived. It's what? Whole nation. Now the sorcerers in the past could only what? Will it over people individually. So now they are wielding this power of sorcery over their own people. That's where the problem is. And they said that this is when it was demonstrated in the what? The Second World War. The first war in which what? Now we know the Germans, we know Germans did that. But we're not American. We American, we true American. They wouldn't use propaganda on its own people. Now this boy, Bill Moyes, this ain't me. Okay, this ain't me. I want to make sure y'all understand that. I didn't dream this stuff up. Somebody dreamt this stuff up because they did it. All right? But I'm not dreaming this up. This is what they actually did. Both sides used motion picture as weapons. Now, over here also it makes mention mass communication changed the field in particular. Now the propagandists could reach the whole crowd at once and yet touch each person in that crowd individually. And now he uses these words. We saw this powerfully and fearfully demonstrated. Now it's interesting that we in Germany that if your parents was teaching you stuff and you went to school and they said that, hey, my parents, any of your parents hiding Jews? Is any of your parents speaking against the state? And the kids would turn their parents in. I mean, what type of power is that? That you would turn your own parents in. We're doing it today. We don't even know. Doing it every day. And so it becomes frightening, as it says, and it was powerfully used. And so we have to really be careful. Now, This presentation, which we're about to do, is the war of what? Whose combatants fought not with artillery and tanks, but with what? Okay, images. You see images when? All the time. Subliminally. Symbols going on all the time. Now, some of the symbols you don't know, but they're communicating to those who know. That's how that works. So these are the tools that they're using today. They're not using the tools of the ancient world. They're using the tools of this world, of symbols and tanks. Symbols and images. And so where do you see these images? On TV. Where else? Billboards. Okay. What about in your textbooks? Every day. And it's the law that you have to go to school to be brainwashed. It's a law to be brainwashed. Yeah, don't try to go to get brainwashed. Lock you up. Hey, this person might be serious. Okay, so then they say, okay, well, we're going to run our own schools. Okay, no problem. Just as long as what? As long as you're accredited. And then some of us say, no, well, we don't want your accreditation. Well, then the parents get scared. Well, then he can't go to college. Well, wait a minute. Wait. If the person can think, he should be able to, wait, if your school, when the person gets out of your school, if they can't read and write, yeah, you need to shut that thing down. Seriously, all right? You need to shut it down, okay? All right, because it ain't doing nobody no good. You're just taking people's money, okay? Now, if they are truly educated without the accreditation, then they can take a GED and they can take any test. They can take the SAT and blow it away. So we should not be scared of not sending our schools to accredited accredited schools. We should not be afraid. But in our mind, they have told us that if they're not accredited, you won't be able. Now it's interesting because we homeschooled our kids. It was so funny. It was so funny with these people. We homeschooled them. My ex-wife, she was a speech therapist, and I'm an engineer. So I taught the math and the science. She taught the English and all of that other stuff. So when they came to, when we said, okay, we're going to let them go to school, it was around high school age. And my daughter was in high school. And so we wasn't afraid. Hey, yeah, test my kids. You'll blow your stuff away. So my son, he was going into the 7th grade. And so we had moved from Tennessee up to Maryland. And they said he didn't take the Maryland math exam. So he got to be in the, I told him he was in algebra, or at least pre-algebra. They said, nah, man, he's in general mathematics. They said until he take the test. So he's in the test with everybody who failed the Maryland functional math test. So when he finally does take it after they get it, I said, okay, now when he finishes, can he go to pre-algebra? They said, yeah, man, we can let him go to pre-algebra after take the test and pass. Took the test, he passed. They said, no, it's too late. He'll be lost in pre-algebra. I said, he's not going to be, okay, fine. So I said, next year, he's going to be in algebra, right? Yeah. So next year, come around and put him in pre-algebra. I said, wait, whoa. That ain't even happening. I said, then we agree that they would be in which class? Algebra. And I said, okay, this is how we're going to resolve this. Real simple. Give him the final that y'all had in pre-algebra. He took it, pumped the B on it. They said, yeah, man, you need to be in that class. I said, I told you. So I wasn't afraid, that we wasn't accredited. I was running my own school. Forget you, man. I know what we could do. He's already above, the reason why you don't want him in there because he's the only black kid. That's why you don't want him in there. And so he was the only black kid in that school because everybody else was white who was at that level. And then when he went to high school, then they gave him, they told me that he was in Algebra 1. I said, excuse me. 8th grade, he took algebra just with the rest of his friends. How come all of them are in geometry? And he's in Algebra 1 again. He's black. We didn't think he could do it. I mean, that's the only thing they can conclude, because, hey, man, if you took you in the same class and you didn't get left back, you may think that. And I said, y'all crazy. Put the man in there. And then I told him, okay, I want him, in the 8th, 9th grade, I said, I want him to take the SAT. She said, he can't do that. I said, yes, he can. I know how you guys do. Y'all started yours at 7th grade taking SAT. He's in 9th grade, SAT. So then when time for the pre-SAT came and all that stuff, they didn't let him go to it and all this, and I found out and I told him, and so anyway, they said that 9th graders don't take it. That was his guidance counselor. Only 11th and 12th graders. So anyway, I complained and went to high officials, and the high officials said, yeah, he can take it, what's the problem? So they had him take it on another day and at another school. And at this school, there was a whole classroom of 9th graders, only 2 black kids in it. So my point was that, listen, we can stand the test. Hey, I mean, we should not be afraid that our schools had to be accredited, because, see, once you become accredited, then you got to teach the what? Okay, miseducation. You got to miseducate the people. We are accrediting you and blessing you and giving you the authority to brainwash the folk, to propagate our faith. And you saying, wait a minute, I don't want to, well, then we can't author, when we cannot accreditate you. But my kids can read and write. That's not the point. They're not being molded, and we're not creating attitudes in them. And we're creating the wrong attitudes in them. So we got a problem here. So that's why we cannot accreditate you, and we will announce it to the whole community that your school is not accredited and you should never send anybody there. But they'll forget this is what they said they were doing. That's why I said they're doing it every day. And some of us pay for them to brainwash our kids. In not the holistic viewpoint neither. In creating those separate points so that it'd be hard for you to, pull this all together. Okay? So this is where we find ourselves. Okay, we're finished with the battle of propaganda. Now we're going to need to see this film. Okay, this is what is called Separate but Equal. You can get the DVD video. It's about Thurgood Marshall. It was some outstanding material
All right,
that was
Professor
done on
Clark,
propaganda.
you can go ahead with your